UFC 256 went down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, and the main thing I want to talk about is Tony Ferguson. And was this his last chance at being a title contender at lightweight? But before I get into that, I want to discuss some of the other fighters on the card. Now, I'm not going to go into excruciating detail of all the fighters, but just a few guys I wanted to touch on. If you're only interested in hearing about Tony Ferguson, I'll put in the description exactly where you can skip to just to hear that part. So, first off, in the co-main event of the prelims, Rafael Fiziev beat Moicano by TKO in the first round, and this was a good fight. It was pretty back and forth up until the finish, obviously, but before that, I think both of the fighters looked good. I had Fiziev slightly ahead, but Moicano landed some good shots too, especially like when Fiziev would throw like a body kick and Moicano would counter with a straight right hand. You know, he did that a couple of times, and it got me thinking, I wonder if like other fighters will be able to pick up on that habit in the future. I wonder if that's going to be like an Achilles heel later on. One thing I'll say about Fiziev is I really like the way he mixes his shots up. He throws a lot of leg kicks, body kicks. His combinations are just fun to watch. And in the finishing combo was really good. The left hook to the body, then right hook and left hook to the head that dropped Moicano. I was like, wow, this guy, he's legit. You know, the ref had to jump in. Moicano, he didn't like the stoppage, but when he tried to stand back up, he fell down again. So, you know, if you can't stand on your feet, it's a done deal. So, good stoppage by the ref. Good win by Fiziev. He's definitely a guy I'm going to keep my eye on in the future. Next up, in the main event of the prelims, not the main event of the card, but the main event of the prelims, Cub Swanson knocked out Daniel Pineda in the second round, and I was so happy to see Cub get the win. Because honestly, I thought he was going to lose, especially like if you look at the last couple years, like the way his career has been going, he's kind of been on a decline. He was on a 4-fight losing streak. Then he won a decision against Kron Gracie. So if you looked at both of the guys, you would assume that, you know, Pineda was going to get the win. And I've been a fan of Cub Swanson since I saw him fight Mac and Semizer back in the WEC. That's before they merged with the UFC. And also, I think that Cub Swanson might have saved himself from being cut, because this year they're cutting a bunch of fighters. They already cut Rachel Ostovich, which was long overdue. She didn't belong in the UFC. And also Yoel Romero, which surprised me because I think he's still top 10 at middleweight. But, you know, Cub Swanson is 37 years old, and he's obviously on a decline. At least he's looked like he was for the past few years. And if he lost this fight, I think the UFC definitely would have cut him. So, now, first fight on the main card, we got Cyril Gane knocking out Junior Dos Santos in the second round with an elbow. And, you know, I suspected this fight would go this way, but I was hoping JDS would get the win because I've been a fan of JDS for a long while. And he was actually one of the first UFC heavyweights I was a fan of. Him and Cain Velasquez. Before them, I didn't like any of the UFC heavyweights. The only heavyweight MMA fighter I liked at the time was Fedor, but he was never in the UFC. But when JDS came on the scene, and, you know, the way he was just knocking everybody out, and the fight that really solidified me as a fan was at UFC 131 when he fought Shane Carwin. And I remember they used to talk about Shane Carwin kind of like they talk about Francis Ngannou now. Like, he had that one-punch knockout power, but JDS dominated the fight. I mean, Carwin's face was just a bloody mess afterwards. And that was the fight that really impressed me the most, at least at that time. But after this fight, and with the UFC cuts going on, I'm pretty sure they'll cut JDS too. You know, 4 straight losses, 4 straight TKOs. I think he's going to be on the chopping block. Now, the next fight, this was a good one. Kevin Holland versus Jacare Souza. This fight I was excited for when they announced it because we get to see exactly where Kevin Holland is amongst the middleweights. Like, he's on fire this year. This was his 5th fight in 2020 and 5th win. Also, this win is his biggest win of his career, no doubt. And Jacare, I mean, his credentials are solid, you know, because we wanted to know, okay, how he compete against the top, you know, the elite guys. Well, Jacare is definitely elite. Jiu-Jitsu world champion. I think he won the Jiu-Jitsu world champion, the Jiu-Jitsu world championship. I think he won the gold like 6 times, and he won silver a bunch of times as well. So he's either first or second every year he's competed. And he's also a former Strikeforce champion. But the way Kevin Holland beat him, that was insane. Like, you never expect the guy to generate that kind of punching power from his back. And, you know, Jacare took him down early, and Holland, he got a black belt on the Travis Lutter, and he was able to threaten him with this triangle choke. And then when they got back to the feet, he was looking for a standing guillotine, and that was unexpected because not many guys are going to try to even tussle with Jacare when it comes to any form of submissions. But the results of this fight, it made the middleweight division very interesting. I think Kevin Holland can be the next big superstar, because they're always looking for new guys and people who can bring more pay-per-view buyers. I think Kevin Holland could be that guy because he has the personality, he has the skills, he trash talks, he already got beef with the champion. That's a backstory they can build on. And also in the post-fight interview, he called out Chimaev, for this weekend on the 19th. They also got some beef earlier this year. They had like a confrontation in a hotel. So that's a fight I love to see. I don't think they'd make it just yet because you have two guys with star potential. So I don't think they'd want either one to lose just yet. But that is a good fight I would want to see. Next fight, Mackenzie Dern versus Vina Jandiroba. Good fight, close fight. The most decisive round, in my opinion, was the first round. That clearly went for Dern. I felt the second round was also close up until like the last minute when Jandiroba was able to gain top position. But the last round, I really didn't know how to score it. I would have been fine with either person being announced as the winner. I think Mackenzie Dern looked really good in this fight. And I'm also very impressed with how well she's taken to striking. I noticed that some fighters from good grappling backgrounds, they seem to have a struggle with putting their strikes together, even if they've been fighting in MMA for a long time. The worst example I think of is Jake Shields. Now, he's one of the best grapplers in MMA, but whenever he tries to throw punches, or even when he's just hitting pads, he looks really awkward and unnatural. Same thing with Ben Askren. He was a good grappler. He always won his fights, but his striking, it never really seemed to get better over time. Anyways, Dern, she seems to really have embraced the striking, and I'm excited to see what's next and how much more improvement she's going to make. And the women's strawweight division is a beast. We got Zhang Wei Li as the champion, Rose Namajunas, #1 contender, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Claudia Gadelha, Amanda Ribas. That's just a very deep division. In my opinion, it's one of the most underrated. Now, the main event. I'll talk about the co-main event last, but I'm just going to jump into the main event right now. Main event, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, ended in a majority draw, and honestly, it's one of the best fights I've ever seen. I was speechless, and after the fight, and based on social media reactions, I'm not the only one. Coming into this fight, Figueiredo was the favorite, and I thought he would destroy Moreno the way he did Alex Perez, the way he did Joseph Benavidez. But then I actually looked at their records, and Figueiredo's only loss was a decision to Jussier Formiga last year, and I looked at Moreno's record, and he has a win over Jussier Formiga this year. So they both fought the same opponent that we can compare. So I thought maybe the fight was closer than people anticipated. Now, I know MMA math doesn't work. I know a lot of people try to use MMA math and it doesn't work. Like if fighter A beat fighter B and fighter B beat fighter C, then fighter A can beat fighter C. Yeah, I know that doesn't work. But the reason I considered using that kind of thought process this time around was because they both fought Formiga within a year of each other, and it was recent enough that the skills of the guys didn't change so drastically. So MMA math in this scenario might be a little more accurate as opposed to comparing guys who fought the same opponent but many years apart. So early in the fight, Figueiredo was walking him down and landing a lot of power shots, but Moreno kept throwing back. And by round 5, Moreno was walking Figueiredo down, and Figueiredo looked like he was gassing. And somewhere in round 3, I think it was, Figueiredo kicked him in the groin real hard, and this was after an eye poke, so 2 fouls. So the ref took a point from Figueiredo. I think if the ref never took a point from Figueiredo, Figueiredo would have won the decision. But it was such a great fight. I hope they can run it back. I still think in a rematch, Figueiredo might win because he seemed to have the slight advantage because of power and size. But Moreno proved that he's game. He's not going back down at all. Now, onto the co-main event, which is the main topic I really wanted to touch on in this video. Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. This was the fight of the card that I was most interested in because I wanted to see how Tony would bounce back after his loss against Justin Gaethje. Charles Oliveira won by unanimous decision, 30-26 across the board, just total domination, and I was surprised. I thought it would be a lot closer than it was. I knew Charles Oliveira was dangerous, and right now he's the dark horse of lightweight, but Tony Ferguson is just a different animal altogether. I knew Oliveira was on a 7-fight win streak with 7 finishes, but I thought Tony could be the one to end his win streak. Because he was at the top of the division for so long, it seemed like the Gaethje loss was just a hiccup. Maybe it was him cutting weight twice that affected his performance. You know, you're trying to find scenarios as to why he lost the way he did against Gaethje. I mean, obviously because Gaethje's a good fighter too. But no, Charles Oliveira, he's just that good, man. I think he should fight the winner of Conor versus Poirier for the belt, because Oliveira wasn't even discussed as a title contender. Like this year, the UFC got Michael Chandler from Bellator, and Khabib vacated his belt. So naturally, the fans are going to want to play matchmaker to see who should get the vacant title. So my initial thoughts were Conor versus Dustin, then Tony versus Chandler, and let there be a sort of like a 4-man tournament for the lightweight belt. And I saw a lot of fans online, and even Michael Chandler himself, that they were echoing the same idea. But then I took a step back and I said, wait a minute. Michael Chandler just got to the UFC. Let me check if there are any lightweights already in the UFC more deserving of a title shot. Lo and behold, Charles Oliveira was on a 7-fight win streak with 7 straight finishes. Most recently, he finished Kevin Lee, but he kind of flies under the radar, so people don't really notice like the hot run he's been on. But that's when I said, no way in hell should Michael Chandler fight for a belt or even a #1 contender spot when he's yet to make his UFC debut, and Charles Oliveira's over here putting in all kinds of work. So Oliveira versus the winner of Dustin versus Conor is the fight to make. Now, coming into this fight, I thought if Tony lost, he definitely would never fight for a title. That's what I was thinking coming into this fight. I always got the feeling that the UFC was reluctant to even give him a title shot. I mean, there's no other fighter in UFC history that went on a 12-fight win streak and not get a title shot at the real belt. The closest was Max Holloway. He went on a 10-fight win streak before he fought for the featherweight belt. Anyways, when Tony lost to Gaethje, everybody just said, damn, there goes Khabib versus Tony. But I still thought, okay, with just one win, he's automatically back in the mix. Then on Saturday, when he lost to Oliveira, I just felt he'd never fight for a belt because they were going to make him go on another long win streak. So I felt this was Tony Ferguson's last chance at fighting for the title. But then I remembered another fighter. There was another fighter who I once written off from ever fighting for a title, but then he won it. Michael Bisping. When Anderson Silva beat Chael Sonnen the first time, I thought Michael Bisping should have been the next guy in line for the belt because he was on a 4-fight win streak. But then Chael fights Brian Stann, and then the UFC matches Chael and Bisping together for the #1 contender spot. And I already thought Bisping deserved to be the #1 contender already. So Chael beats Bisping, and I thought Bisping deserved to win that fight, honestly. I thought the decision was bad. But then Chael goes on to rematch Silva for the belt. And then over the next couple of years, Bisping, he would win one, then lose one. Then he would win one and lose one. And the way the middleweight division was at the time with, Weidman and Rockhold at the top and, all these other guys in up-and-coming middleweights, I never thought he'd be able to, get a chance to win the belt. I thought, okay, that ship has sails already. But then he gets a title shot on 2 weeks' notice against Rockhold, and I'm thinking, great, he gets his title shot, but Rockhold already beat him, and he finished him, so it's going to be a repeat of the same, and I was so wrong. Nobody thought Bisping would win, especially not by first-round KO. So I say that to say I'm not writing off Tony Ferguson just yet. Maybe my optimism is bordering on naivete, but in this sport, anything can happen. If someone gets injured or falls out for some reason, if he has to fill in on short notice, I think a guy like Tony Ferguson will feel a sense of urgency the same way Bisping did, and he just might get the belt. Now, no one thought Bisping would win the belt at 37. No one, Jan Blachowicz, no one thought he would win his belt at 37, and especially early on in their career when they had those ups and downs. And Tony turns 37 next year, and I'm not saying 37 is a magical number that he's going to win his belt, but who knows what can happen. I'm not writing him off just yet. Anyway, guys, that's all I had to say about that. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and peace.
Less than 5 remain standing. Gas is closing in. Relocating the safe zone. Gas is closing in. Gas is closing. Get to the new safe zone. Gas is moving. one of 5 remaining. They hit us hard.